The champagne was still cold in my hand when my husband of 5 years walked into our kitchen, threw divorce papers on the marble counter, and said the words that would change everything. "Pack your bags, Rebecca. This marriage is over. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss." What he didn't know was that I had just received the phone call that would make me the youngest vice president in Goldman & Associates' 50-year history. What I didn't know was that this was only the beginning of a story that would teach me the true meaning of betrayal, revenge, and ultimately freedom. The morning of March 15th started like any other Tuesday in our Westchester home. I was rushing around the kitchen, trying to prepare breakfast while simultaneously reviewing the quarterly reports that could determine my future at Goldman & Associates. My husband, David Chen, sat at our dining table, scrolling through his phone with the same detached expression he'd worn for months. "The Peterson account presentation is today," I said, placing his coffee exactly how he liked it. 2 sugars, splash of cream. "If this goes well, Miss Goldman said there might be some big changes coming." David barely looked up. "That's nice, honey. 5 years of marriage." And I still believed his indifference was just stress from his own job at his father's real estate firm. Chen Properties wasn't exactly thriving, but David had assured me countless times that things would turn around. What I didn't realize was that he'd been planning his own turnaround, one that didn't include me. I grabbed my briefcase and headed for the door. "I should be home by 7. Want me to pick up dinner from that Italian place you like?" "Don't bother," he called out without turning around. "I'll be working late." That should have been my first red flag, but I was too focused on the biggest presentation of my career to notice that my husband had been working late every night for the past 3 weeks. The Peterson account presentation went flawlessly. Linda Peterson, CEO of Peterson Manufacturing, sat across from me in the Goldman & Associates conference room, nodding approvingly as I outlined our comprehensive financial restructuring plan. "Thompson," she said, leaning forward with interest, "this is exactly the innovative thinking Peterson Manufacturing needs. You've clearly done your homework." My colleague James Mitchell shifted uncomfortably beside me. He'd been expecting to lead this presentation, but Mr. Goldman had specifically requested that I take point. James had been with the firm for 8 years, 3 more than me, and his resentment was palpable. "The projected savings over 5 years would be substantial," I continued, clicking to the next slide. "We're looking at a 40% reduction in operational costs while increasing efficiency by 60%. Linda Peterson smiled. "Impressive. Very impressive." After the presentation, Mr. Goldman himself walked Linda to the elevator. At 72, Harrison Goldman still commanded respect in every room he entered. His silver hair was perfectly styled, his suit impeccable, and his handshake firm enough to close billion-dollar deals. "Outstanding work today, Rebecca," he said, returning to the conference room. "Walk with me." We strolled down the mahogany-paneled hallway, lined with portraits of the firm's founding partners. Goldman & Associates had been handling high-profile financial restructuring for major corporations since 1874. And every step through these halls felt like walking through financial history. "Rebecca, I've been watching your work for the past 2 years," Mr. Goldman said, stopping by the large window overlooking Manhattan. "The Hartley merger, the Sullivan acquisition, the Brookstone restructuring. You've shown exceptional skill and judgment." My heart began racing. These were the kinds of conversations that changed careers. "The board met this morning," he continued. "We've decided to create a new position, Vice President of Strategic Development. It's a role that will put you in charge of our most complex accounts, with a team of 12 analysts reporting directly to you." I tried to keep my voice steady. "Mr. Goldman, I'm honored, but the salary starts at $450,000 annually, plus performance bonuses that could double that figure. You'd also receive equity in the firm, something we've only offered to 3 other employees in our history." The world seemed to stop. At 28, I would be the youngest VP in the firm's history, earning more money than I'd ever dreamed possible. All those years of working 16-hour days, sacrificing weekends, missing dinners with David, it had all been worth it. "I accept," I said, trying not to smile too widely. "Excellent. We'll make the announcement to the firm tomorrow, but I wanted you to hear it first. Congratulations, Rebecca. You've earned this. I practically floated back to my office, immediately reaching for my phone to call Dave. This was the moment we'd been working toward, the financial security that would allow us to start the family we'd been planning, maybe buy that house in Connecticut we'd looked at last month. The call went straight to voicemail. David, call me back immediately. I have the most incredible news. I tried calling 3 more times during the afternoon, each call going directly to voicemail. By 6 o'clock I was torn between excitement and frustration. The biggest moment of my career and my husband was unreachable. I decided to surprise him at home with champagne and the news in person. The house was quiet when I arrived. David's BMW missing from the drive. I opened a bottle of Dom Perignon that we'd been saving for a special occasion. This definitely qualified, and waited in the living room, still buzzing with excitement. At 8:30 I heard his key in the door. David, I called out, rushing to the kitchen with 2 champagne flutes. You're not going to believe what happened today. He walked in carrying a manila envelope, and wearing an expression I'd never seen before, cold, determined, almost cruel. Sit down, Rebecca. David, wait until you hear this. I got promoted. VP of Strategic Development, $450,000 a year, equity in the firm, we're set for life. He placed the manila envelope on the counter between us, his movement deliberate and final. I said sit down. Something in his tone made my excitement drain away. I slowly lowered myself into one of our kitchen chairs, still holding the champagne flutes. I'm divorcing you, he said simply. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? I've filed for divorce. Those are the papers. You need to sign them and move out by the end of the week. The champagne flutes slipped from my hands, shattering on the tile floor. David, what are you talking about? I just got promoted. We can finally have everything we wanted. What I want, he said, his voice completely devoid of emotion, is to not be married to you anymore. I stared at him, searching his face for any sign of the man I'd married. Is this about money? About me earning more than you? David, we're a team. A team, he laughed bitterly. Rebecca, you're so focused on your career that you haven't even noticed your own life falling apart. My life isn't falling apart. I just got the biggest promotion of my career. Your marriage is falling apart. It has been for months. I stood up, champagne and glass shards crunching under my feet. Months. David, why didn't you talk to me? We can work through this. There's nothing to work through. I'm done. That's when I noticed he wasn't wearing his wedding ring. When did you take that off? I whispered. 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks of working late. 3 weeks of barely speaking to me. 3 weeks of planning this moment while I was completely oblivious. Is there someone else? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. David's pause told me everything. Her name is Amanda. She understands me in ways you never did. Amanda. The name felt foreign in my mouth. How long? 6 months. 6 months. While I was working overtime to secure our future, my husband was building a different future with someone else. David, please, I said, hating how desperate I sounded. We can fix this. I know I've been working a lot, but now with this promotion, I can delegate more, spend more time at home. You don't get it, he interrupted. I don't want you to change. I want you gone. He walked to the refrigerator and pulled out a beer as if this conversation was no more significant than discussing the weather. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. Amanda's moving in this weekend, he continued casually. So you really do need to be out by Friday. This weekend? The betrayal kept getting deeper. David, this is my home too. My name is on the mortgage. Actually, it's not. He took a long sip of beer. I refinanced the house 6 months ago. Your name was removed from all the paperwork. My legs gave out. I sank back into the chair, staring at this stranger who looked like my husband but spoke like my worst enemy. That's impossible. I would have had to sign. Remember that stack of papers I asked you to sign in January? I told you they were insurance forms. The room started spinning. I remembered that night. I'd been exhausted from a particularly brutal week at work, and David had presented me with a pile of documents, saying they were routine insurance updates. I'd signed them without reading, trusting my husband completely. "You forged my signature on divorce papers 6 months ago." I had everything prepared. I was just waiting for the right moment. And the right moment was the day I got promoted. The right moment was when I realized I loved someone else. I looked around our kitchen, the kitchen where we'd had breakfast every morning for 5 years, where we'd planned our future, where I'd told him about every success and failure at work. None of it had meant anything to him. "David, please." We took vows, for better or worse, in sickness and in health. "Save the wedding speech, Rebecca. I've already filed the papers. This conversation is just a courtesy." A courtesy? I stood up again, anger finally overtaking shock. "A courtesy would have been talking to me before you decided to blow up our marriage." "You were never here to talk to," he shot back. "Always at the office. Always on your phone. Always choosing work over us. I was building our future. You were building your future. There's a difference." He finished his beer and placed the empty bottle on the counter with deliberate precision. "Amanda will be here in an hour to look at paint colors for the bedroom. You might want to start packing." With that, he walked out of the kitchen, leaving me standing alone among the broken champagne flutes and the shattered remains of my life. I picked up the divorce papers with trembling hands. The filing date was 6 months ago, the same week I'd started working on the Peterson account, the same week he'd met Amanda, the same week my marriage had apparently ended, though I was the last one to know. My phone buzzed with a text message. For a split second, I hoped it was David, saying this was all a terrible mistake. Instead, it was a photo from an unknown number. A picture of David and a blonde woman I'd never seen before, both laughing at what looked like an expensive restaurant. The timestamp showed it was taken 3 hours ago, while I was celebrating my promotion alone in my office. Another text came through. "Sorry you had to find out this way. He told me you knew." Amanda. I stared at the photo, at my husband's face lit up with joy. I hadn't seen in months. With her, he looked like the man I'd fallen in love with 5 years ago. With me, he'd become a stranger. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway made me look up. Through the kitchen window, I could see David getting out of his BMW, but he wasn't alone. A blonde woman stepped out of the passenger side, Amanda, apparently, and she was carrying fabric samples. They were redecorating our bedroom. Tonight, I grabbed the divorce papers and my purse, leaving the broken champagne glasses on the floor. If David wanted me gone, I'd be gone. But as I drove away from the house we'd picked out together, the house we'd planned to fill with children, I had no idea that this was just the beginning. What I didn't know was that tomorrow I'd wake up with a chance to rewrite this entire story. What David didn't know was that his perfectly planned betrayal was about to become his biggest mistake. The promotion he'd dismissed so casually, it would become the foundation of an empire that would make him beg for a second chance he'd never deserve. But that night, driving away from my old life with divorce papers in my passenger seat, all I could think was, how had I been so blind? I woke up in my childhood bedroom in my mother's house in Riverside, Connecticut, with sunlight streaming through the same pink curtains I'd begged her to replace when I was 16. For a moment, I forgot where I was, why I was there, and why my chest felt like someone had carved out my heart with a rusty spoon. Then I saw the divorce papers on the nightstand, and everything came flooding back. My phone showed 47 missed calls and over 100 text messages. Word had apparently gotten out about both my promotion and my personal disaster. The last thing I wanted was to face the world, but my mother, Patricia Thompson, had other plans. "Rebecca Marie Thompson," she called from downstairs, using my full name the way she had when I was in trouble as a child. "Get down here." Now, I found her in the kitchen, still in her nursing scrubs from her overnight shift at Riverside General. At 55, my mother had raised me alone after my father left when I was 8, and she had zero tolerance for self-pity. "Drink this," she said, sliding a cup of coffee across the kitchen table. Then tell me why my brilliant daughter is hiding in her childhood bedroom instead of celebrating the biggest promotion of her career. Mom, I can't. You can, and you will, start talking. So I told her everything. David's affair, the forged documents, the house, Amanda's text messages, all of it. When I finished, my mother sat quietly for a long moment, then stood up and walked to the kitchen window. Your father did something similar, she said finally. Not the affair part, but the financial manipulation. Left me with nothing but debt and an 8-year-old daughter to raise. I'd never known the details of my parents' divorce. My mother had always just said, they grew apart. The difference, she continued, turning back to me, is that your father was a weak man who ran away from responsibility. David is a calculating man who planned this for months. Which means he's dangerous. Mom, he's not dangerous. He's just, Rebecca, listen to me. Men like David don't just want to leave. They want to win. And right now, he thinks he's won everything. The house, the money, the other woman, and the satisfaction of blindsiding you. But he made one crucial mistake. What's that? He underestimated you. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Harrison Goldman's name appeared on the screen. Rebecca, his voice was concerned but professional. I heard about your personal situation. Are you all right? I'm managing, Mr. Goldman. Good, because I need you in the office today. We're announcing your promotion to the entire firm, and Linda Peterson specifically requested to meet with you about expanding the Peterson account. Sir, I don't know if I'm ready. Rebecca, I've been in business for 50 years. I've seen brilliant people destroyed by personal setbacks, and I've seen others use those setbacks as fuel. Which one are you going to be? After I hung up, my mother smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. That, she said, is how you build an empire. One decision at a time. The Goldman & Associates conference room was packed when I arrived. The entire firm, 43 employees, had gathered for the announcement. I could feel their eyes on me as I walked to the front, knowing that most of them had probably heard about my divorce through the Manhattan Financial Gossip Network. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Goldman began, it's my pleasure to announce that Rebecca Thompson has been promoted to Vice President of Strategic Development, effective immediately. The applause was polite but genuine. James Mitchell clapped slowly, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. Several of the younger associates looked genuinely excited. I'd mentored most of them during their first year. Rebecca will be taking point on all major restructuring accounts, starting with an expansion of our Peterson manufacturing relationship. Mr. Goldman continued, I have complete confidence in her abilities. After the announcement, Linda Peterson pulled me aside. Rebecca, I have a proposition for you, she said. Peterson Manufacturing is about to acquire 3 smaller companies over the next 18 months. The total value of these deals will be approximately $2. I want Goldman & Associates to handle all the financial structuring, but only if you personally oversee every aspect. My mind raced. A $2.8 billion series of acquisitions would generate at least $50 million in fees for Goldman & Associates. My personal commission on that would be substantial. Mrs. Peterson, I'm honored by your confidence. It's not just confidence, Rebecca. I've done my research on you. Your work on the Hartley merger saved them $200 million. Your restructuring of Sullivan Industries turned a failing company into a market leader. You don't just manage money, you understand how to make companies stronger. That afternoon, I threw myself into work with an intensity that surprised even me. I mapped out preliminary plans for all 3 Peterson acquisitions, researched the target companies, and began building the teams I'd need for each project. By 7 o'clock, I was the only person left in the office. That's when my personal phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Rebecca? It's Amanda. I almost hung up immediately. Please don't hang up, she continued quickly. I need to talk to you. I have nothing to say to you. David lied to me. He told me you two were separated, that you'd been living apart for months. I had no idea he was planning to divorce you yesterday. I gripped the phone tighter. What do you want, Amanda? To apologize, and to warn you. Warn me about what? David's been planning this for a long time, not just the divorce. Everything. He's been tracking your career, your finances, everything. He has copies of your Goldman and Associates contracts, your salary information, even your investment portfolios. My blood ran cold. How? He's been going through your emails for months. He installed some kind of tracking software on your laptop. I immediately opened my laptop and started checking. Amanda was right. There was spyware installed that I'd never noticed, hidden in what looked like a routine system update. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Because I thought I was dating a divorced man who was trying to rebuild his life. I didn't sign up to be part of someone's revenge plot. Revenge plot? Rebecca, David isn't just leaving you. He's planning to destroy your career. He's been collecting information about your clients, your strategies, everything. He thinks if he can damage your reputation at Goldman and Associates, you'll be forced to accept a smaller divorce settlement. After Amanda hung up, I sat in my empty office, staring at my compromised laptop. David hadn't just betrayed our marriage, he'd been conducting corporate espionage against me for months. But, as I thought about it, I realized something David hadn't counted on. I was very good at my job precisely because I understood how to outmaneuver people who thought they were smarter than everyone else. I spent the next 3 hours documenting every piece of spyware on my system, creating a complete digital trail of David's surveillance. Then I called the best IT security expert I knew, Marcus Bradley, who'd done cybersecurity work for several of our clients. "Rebecca, this is sophisticated stuff," Marcus said after examining my laptop remotely. "Whoever installed this has been tracking your keystrokes, email communications, file transfers, everything. They've essentially had access to all your client information. Can you trace where the information was sent?" "Already on it." The data was being automatically forwarded to 3 different email accounts. One belongs to David Chen, one to someone named Jonathan Pierce, and the third is registered to a company called Atlantic Research Solutions. I'd never heard of Jonathan Pierce or Atlantic Research Solutions, but I intended to find out exactly who they were. The next morning, I met with my lawyer, Caroline Walsh, a shark in a suit who'd built her reputation destroying unfaithful husbands in divorce court. "Rebecca, this changes everything," Caroline said after reviewing the digital evidence. "David's espionage activities could constitute corporate theft. Some of your client information falls under attorney-client privilege protection. He's committed multiple felonies. What are my options? We can file criminal charges, seek restraining orders, and most importantly, use this as leverage in the divorce proceedings. The house he refinanced, we can argue that it was done under fraudulent circumstances. The prenup he's probably planning to cite, null and void if we can prove he was planning the divorce while committing crimes." That afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor at Goldman and Associates. Detective Sarah Martinez from the NYPD's cybercrime unit knocked on my office door. "Miss Thompson? I understand you may have information about a corporate espionage case we're investigating." My heart skipped. "I'm sorry, Detective, but I don't understand." "Atlantic Research Solutions. We've been tracking them for 8 months. They specialize in stealing proprietary information from financial firms and selling it to competitors. Your name came up in our investigation." I showed Detective Martinez everything: the spyware, the data trails, David's involvement. She took detailed notes and asked me to sign several statements. "Miss Thompson, your husband has been feeding information to a criminal organization. The good news is that you're a victim, not a target. The bad news is that several of your clients' confidential information has been compromised." After Detective Martinez left, I sat in my office trying to process everything. David hadn't just betrayed me personally. He'd betrayed my clients, my firm, and potentially damaged my entire career. But then something clicked. David thought he was destroying me, but he'd actually given me the tools to destroy him. I called Linda Peterson immediately. "Mrs. Peterson, I need to inform you of a security breach that affected your account." After explaining the situation, Linda was quiet for a long moment. "Rebecca, this is obviously not your fault. But I'm concerned about the integrity of our business relationship moving forward. I understand completely. Which is why I'm proposing something unprecedented. I'm listening. I want to personally guarantee the security of all Peterson accounts. Any future breaches, any compromised information, any security failures. I'll personally cover any damages. Complete financial liability on my part. That's a significant risk for you to take. Mrs. Peterson, someone tried to destroy my career by attacking my clients. I want to make it clear that I'll go to any length to protect the people who trust me with their business. There was another pause. Then Linda Peterson laughed. Rebecca, you've just turned a potential crisis into the strongest client guarantee I've ever heard. Let's expand those acquisition plans. I want to see what someone with your determination can accomplish when she's properly motivated. That evening, I returned to my mother's house with a stack of legal documents, corporate contracts, and a plan that would either rebuild my life or destroy what was left of it. How was your day, sweetheart? My mother asked. Mom, I said, spreading the paperwork across her kitchen table. Remember when you told me David underestimated me? Yes. He's about to find out exactly how much. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Rebecca, this is David. We need to talk. There are things you don't understand about the divorce. Can we meet? I showed the message to my mother, who read it and smiled. What should I tell him? I asked. Tell him you'll think about it. She said. Then let him wait. Let him wonder. Let him start to realize that the woman he thought he could manipulate and discard is about to become his biggest nightmare. As I drafted my response to David, I realized that Amanda had been wrong about one thing. David wasn't planning to destroy my career. He'd already tried and failed. What he didn't know was that his failed attempt had just given me everything I needed to destroy his entire life. The student was about to become the teacher, and David Chen was about to learn that some lessons come with a very expensive price tag. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in my new corner office, complete with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, when my assistant, Kelly Rodriguez, knocked on my door with an amused expression. Miss Thompson, there's David Chen here to see you. He says he's your husband. Ex-husband. I corrected, not looking up from the Peterson acquisition contracts I was reviewing. Tell him I'm in meetings all day. Already did. He said he'll wait. I glanced up to see David through my glass office walls, sitting in the reception area in a wrinkled suit, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, and he kept checking his phone nervously. How long has he been there? 2 hours. He's asked to speak with you 14 times. The irony wasn't lost on me. For 5 years of marriage, David had barely shown interest in my work. Now he was camping out in my office lobby like a desperate salesman. Let him wait, I said, returning to my contract. By 5 o'clock, David was still there. Kelly had offered him coffee 3 times, which he'd declined, and I'd watched him pace the reception area through my peripheral vision while conducting video calls with clients in Los Angeles and London. Finally, I decided to put him out of his misery. Send him in, I told Kelly, but if this meeting goes longer than 10 minutes, interrupt with an urgent call. David practically ran into my office, and I could see immediately that something had gone very wrong in his world. His expensive suit looked like he'd slept in it. His eyes were bloodshot, and he moved with the frantic energy of a man whose carefully laid plans were crumbling. Rebecca, thank God you'll see me, he said, closing the door behind him. We need to talk. You have 10 minutes, I said, not inviting him to sit. What do you want? I want to call off the divorce. I looked up from my contracts for the first time since he'd entered. Excuse me? The divorce. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. Amanda and it's over. I want to work things out with you. I leaned back in my leather chair and studied with my ex-husband. 3 weeks ago, he'd been confident, cruel, and dismissive. Now he looked like a man who'd been hit by a truck. What happened? David. What do you mean? I mean, 3 weeks ago you couldn't wait to get rid of me. You had Amanda picking out paint colors for our bedroom. Now you want to work things out. What changed? David shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting around my office, taking in the awards on my walls, the view of Central Park, the obvious markers of success and power. I realized I made a mistake, he said. I let my pride get in the way of our marriage. Your pride? I repeated flatly. Yes. I was intimidated by your success, and instead of supporting you, I sabotaged us. I almost laughed. David was trying to rewrite history, casting himself as an insecure husband instead of a calculating betrayer. That's an interesting interpretation, I said, but it doesn't explain the spyware you installed on my laptop, or corporate espionage, or Atlantic Research Solutions. The color drained from David's face. Rebecca, I can explain. Oh, I'm sure you can, but here's the thing. David, I don't need your explanations anymore. I have Detective Martinez's investigation report. I have the FBI's cybercrime analysis. I have documentation of every law you broke while stealing my client's confidential information. David sank into the chair across from my desk without being invited. The FBI. Turns out Atlantic Research Solutions was under federal investigation for corporate espionage. Your little side business with Jonathan Pierce helped them build a case against a criminal organization that's been stealing trade secrets for years. Rebecca, please, you have to understand. I never meant for it to go that far. Pierce offered me money for basic information about your clients. But I never thought. You sold my clients' private financial information to criminals for money, I interrupted, while planning to divorce me and steal our house. Did I miss anything? David's hands were shaking now. How much does the FBI know? Everything. David, they have your emails, your bank records, documentation of every payment you received from Pierce. They know about the refinanced house, the forged documents, all of it. What are they going to do? I smiled, the first genuine smile I'd felt in weeks. Well, that depends on my cooperation with their ongoing investigation. David's eyes widened. Rebecca, you can't. We're married. Spousal privilege. We're divorced, David. You made sure of that. There's no spousal privilege for ex-wives. You should have thought about that before you decided to become a corporate spy. I stood up and walked to my window, looking out at Central Park. David, do you see that building across the street? The one with the red awning? He looked confused but nodded. I just bought it. $15 million. Cash. Last week I closed the largest acquisition deal in Goldman & Associates history. This month my personal commission will be larger than what most people make in 5 years. I turned back to face him. You divorced me because you thought I was too focused on work, too ambitious, too successful. You wanted a wife who would make you feel important. Well, congratulations, you got exactly what you wanted. You're free to find someone who'll make you feel like the big man you always wanted to be. But I don't want that anymore. David said, his voice breaking. I want you. No, David. You want my money. He started to protest, but I held up my hand. 3 weeks ago, you thought you were divorcing a workaholic wife to be with your mistress. You thought you'd keep the house, avoid alimony, and start fresh with Amanda. What you didn't count on was Amanda having a conscience, or the FBI investigating your criminal activities, or me turning your betrayal into the motivation I needed to reach the next level of my career. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and smiled. Speaking of Amanda, I said, showing David the screen. She's outside in the lobby. Should I invite her up? David's face went white. Amanda's here? She's been working with Detective Martinez for 2 weeks. Turns out when you told her our marriage was already over, you forgot to mention the part where you were committing federal crimes. Amanda doesn't want to be an accessory to your felony. She's testifying against me. She's telling the truth about what you told her, and when. The rest of the evidence speaks for itself. Kelly knocked on my door and entered without waiting for permission. Our prearranged signal that David's time was up. Miss Thompson, your 6 o'clock conference call with the London clients is ready. Thank you, Kelly. I looked at David. Our meeting is over. Rebecca. Wait. Please. What will it take? What do you want? Money? I'll give you everything from the house sale, the car, my father's company, whatever you want. David, you still don't understand. 3 weeks ago, I might have wanted those things. Today, I make more money before lunch than you made last year. I don't want your house or your car or your father's failing company. Then what do you want? I walked to my door and opened it, gesturing for him to leave. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to realize that the woman you thought you could manipulate and discard just became the most powerful person you'll ever know. And I want you to live with the knowledge that if you'd just been honest about wanting a divorce, if you'd just asked for a fair settlement instead of trying to destroy me, you might have walked away with your freedom and your dignity intact. David stood up slowly, moving like a man in a daze. So that's it? You're going to let them arrest me? David, I'm not letting them do anything. You committed crimes. The consequences of those crimes were always going to catch up with you. I just happened to be the person who documented them. He paused at my office door. I loved you, Rebecca. I really did. No, David. You loved the idea of me. You loved having a successful wife when it made you look good, and you hated having a successful wife when it made you feel small. You never loved me enough to be honest with me, and you certainly never loved me enough to respect me. After David left, I watched through my window as he emerged from the building onto the street below. Amanda was waiting by a black sedan, Detective Martinez's unmarked car. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could see David's body language as he realized that his ex-mistress was working with law enforcement. The desperation, the pleading, the complete breakdown of a man who'd thought he was so clever it was almost pathetic to watch. My phone rang, interrupting my observation of David's public meltdown. Rebecca, it's Linda Peterson. I wanted to personally thank you for how you handled the security breach situation. Because of your transparency and the way you've restructured our accounts, the Peterson board has decided to move all of our financial operations to Goldman & Associates. We're talking about a $500 million account transfer. After I hung up, I realized that David's betrayal had become the best thing that ever happened to my career. His criminal activities had forced me to prove my integrity in ways that no normal business relationship could have accomplished. Every client who'd been affected by his espionage had seen me take personal responsibility, offer guarantees, and go above and beyond to protect their interests. 6 months later, I was promoted again. This time to senior vice president, the youngest person in the firm's history to hold that title. David was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison for corporate espionage and financial fraud. Chen Properties declared bankruptcy 3 months after his arrest. Amanda sent me a card on the 1-year anniversary of my divorce. It simply said, "Thank you for helping me find my conscience. I hope David finds his in prison." I kept the card in my desk drawer, not as a reminder of David's betrayal, but as a reminder of how people's true character reveals itself under pressure. Amanda had chosen to do the right thing when it mattered. David had chosen to double down on his lies and criminal behavior even when caught. The most satisfying part wasn't David's prison sentence or the collapse of his father's company. It was the realization that while he'd been plotting to destroy my life, I'd been building something he could never touch. A reputation based on integrity, competence, and the kind of success that comes from actually being good at what you do. David had thought he was playing chess while I was playing checkers. Turns out, I wasn't playing games at all. I was building an empire, and his betrayal had just provided the foundation. Some lessons really do come with expensive price tags. David's education had cost him his freedom, his family's business, and any chance of building a legitimate life. Mine had cost me a marriage I thought I wanted, but given me a life I actually deserved. The trade-off, I decided, had been more than worth it. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.